Today we will talk about COP28, a climate meeting organized by the United Nations that brings different countries together to discuss and plan for climate change. And climate change is important indeed, and it needs the world's focus. Otherwise, our collective ecosystems will fall apart, and nobody wants that, no? So the interesting thing about this conference is that 200 countries finally agreed that we need to transition away from fossil fuels. This is unprecedented because to get everyone to sign off on it requires that everyone sign off on it, even the fossil fuel producers, and they have been blocking even the mention of fossil fuels in these conferences for the longest time. And what's really interesting is that this conference was in fact hosted by the UAE, which is one of the world's top 10 oil producing nations, and it gets more interesting. They appointed Sultan-Al-Jaber, CEO of the state-owned oil company, as the COP28 president. And there's more. There were leaked documents suggesting that the UAE planned to use its role as a host to strike new oil and gas deals. So it's not a stretch to say that this conference did not really start on the best note. But after a long back and forth, 200 nations agreed that we need to reduce the use of fossil fuels because the climate problem is too big to be ignored now. And let's talk a bit about climate change. There's a Paris Agreement in which 195 nations pledged to hold the Earth's temperature to below 2 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial levels and limited to 1.5 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial levels. What are pre-industrial levels? It is generally considered that the years from 1850 to 1900 are a reliable reference because we didn't use much fossil fuels then, and it is also the earliest period from when global observations of land and sea temperatures are available. During this period, the average global temperature generally hovered around 13.5 degrees Celsius. So you could say the pre-industrial level temperature is 13.5 degrees, and we have to try to keep it increasing beyond 1.5 degrees Celsius. If the world can keep below this line, it potentially could avoid the more extreme and irreversible climate effects that would occur with a 2 degrees Celsius increase, and for some places an even smaller increase in that. And to do this, the world will have to halve emissions by 2030 and reach net zero emissions by the year 2050. Which means that in terms of the emissions released by the burning of coal, oil and natural gas, the entire world will have to remove as much as it puts into the atmosphere. However, before the final deal was agreed at COP28, there were warnings that the world is actually on track for around 2.7 degrees Celsius of warming by 2100. So, it really is high time we do something about climate change. Now, what does this agreement mean? The agreement says that we have to move away from coal, oil and gas, and that should be done in a just, orderly and equitable manner. This wording is important because it means that richer countries are expected to do this faster than other countries. But the agreement doesn't force countries to act right away, and it doesn't say when they have to do it. So countries can make their own plans to reduce emissions. The agreement also includes global targets to triple the capacity of renewable energy like wind and solar power and to double the rate of energy efficiency improvements both by 2030. It calls on countries to accelerate low and zero emission technologies like carbon capture and storage, which I'll explain in another video. So finally, what could this mean for the future? So first of all, a net zero situation wouldn't mean that we will stop consuming fossil fuels. It will simply mean that we will remove as much emissions as we put into the atmosphere. So there will still be plenty of oil and gas being consumed in 2050 on a day-to-day basis. However, it does mean a rapid decrease in the consumption of fossil fuels. It's a market signal for businesses to understand that investing in clean technologies is likely to be a profitable thing in the long run, and investing in fossil fuels is not likely to be great. So, it looks like the world is moving in the right direction when it comes to dealing with climate change. So yeah, that's all about the COP28. Check the description below for an explanation of jargon. Thanks for watching.